June meeting minutes?
I have two corrections.
Okay,
Okay, under Lake Quality Committee, the third billet down, it says Anoka County has applied for a grant to treat Phragmites and would like us to participate. We gave them our bid amount from the DNR. It was not from the DNR, it was from Lake Management.
Oh, okay.
That should be Lake Management and not the DNR. The next one is the fourth billet down. It says yellowtail iris is found mostly, it should be in front of the Philibrown house.
In front of,
Fillebrown. That's the historic.
F-I-L-L-E-E. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Got it.
Fillebrown.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
That's it.
okay, and then I have one item, this is a nit, sorry, Kim.
That's
Item
okay.
one, item one in the first sentence there, it's dismiss with the apostrophe S.
Okay.
Rid of the apostrophe S.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Okay, any other adjustments to the June meeting minutes? Okay, I'll make a motion, we approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, any discussion? Alan, will you call the vote, please?
Mr. Chair,
Aye.
Diane,
Aye.
Scott O'Connor,
Aye.
Toronto,
Aye.
Cameron,
Aye.
and finally Scott Costello.
Aye.
All right, you have all eyes on the minutes, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Alan. So public comments, the next item on the agenda. And is there anybody on, Alan, that would be interested in speaking at our public comment time?
Mr. Chair, there's no one in the waiting room. Everyone who's on the call is either staff or board.
Okay, so I'll assume no one's out there that wants to talk with us about anything tonight, so we'll move on. New business, there's no new business. Same with the next item on the agenda, item 7, unfinished business. There's no unfinished business. So we're on to reports and action items. The first one is the executive committee, and the executive committee, we did meet virtually. And there's two things that I want to report from that meeting. One is a St. Germain's Bay sign. This idea came up from someone, I don't know if it was Mike or if it was Mark or someone, that we advocate or put up a sign noting St. Germain's Bay in Delwood, one to mark the bay, and then also to give a little shout out to George, who is such a valuable long-term member of the board. The information that we have at the moment, I reached out to an engineer I know that does this kind of stuff, and his kind of off the hip estimate for the sign was around $500, which seems low to me, but I don't really know. And so I guess what I would, in my mind, what I think is we should probably be thinking somewhere between $500 and $2,000 for the sign, and that $2,000 I'm just pulling out of the air, just so you know. But when I think about putting up the posts and buying the sign and all that kind of thing, I think that could turn into some few dollars. Then the last piece of information, which hopefully we're not getting a little bit ahead of ourselves, but apparently Mark got this item on the Delwood agenda. And is that your understanding, Diane?
Yeah.
Okay, so at the next, I guess, Delwood board meeting, they will be considering a request, is my understanding, for us to put up this sign, which is an important step, because obviously if they say no, or if they say, well, yes, you can, but it has to meet these certain requirements that impact costs, then then that would be a information the board would want to know. Anyway, to get to the cut to the chase, the items on the agenda, we have a very rough ballpark cost. Let's say that's $500 to $2,000. And so depending on what the city of Delwood or the village Delwood does, if they say, yes, go ahead, then the board will have to firm up those costs and make a decision, because no decision's been made, but make a decision or not to move forward. Are there any questions about that item?
In addition to the approval of Delwood, you'd need approval from the highway department.
Yeah, fair enough.
They put a sticker on the back of the sign, otherwise they'll remove it and not even tell you.
Yeah.
Where are they going
Sorry.
to put the sign?
Oh, that's a good question, Cameron. Diane, and Diane, do you remember what Mark said?
I thought he said kind of along Delwood Avenue, right before the west or east of the peninsula, kind of where St. Germain's Bay is located.
Sure.
But I don't think he had a specific place that he was going to put it. But I was thinking maybe Delwood would want to contribute to the cost too. You never know.
Oh, that's a good idea. And Cameron, so that's probably not a very satisfying answer.
Yeah, right.
I think that it seems like Delwood would have some input on that. But I imagine, and again, Mark's not at the meeting tonight, so we don't have the straight from the horse's mouth. But I imagine that he has suggested some location.
Well,
At least
Mike, what do you think? I mean, you're pretty aware of that area over there.
I took some pictures that I forwarded to, I think, both Mark and Brian, highway of right-of-way areas where it could be placed. And right on the Peninsula Approach Road, there are some other highway signs, and it could just be right there if it's okay with Delwood. I think Delwood would understand where it could go.
Yeah.
I mean, ideally, Delwood's road engineering department should install it. I mean, if they would consent to do that.
Yeah, in a perfect world, that would be a pretty good world to live in. If we could buy the sign and the materials and they could install it for us.
Yeah. I mean, they're set up to do it. They know the rules on the highway right-of-ways.
Yeah.
And frankly, with it being a 244, it might be up to the Washington County highway crew anyway.
Sure.
But Delwood would certainly have primary authority over where it would go, just because I've done this a few times with other memorial highways.
Okay, so we have some hoops to jump through, let's say. But the next item is the Delwood meeting, and then from that we'll get more information, and then we can keep trying to move this thing down the road. And again, at some point in the future, the board will have to make a decision of whether to spend money or not. Anything else on that item? Okay, move on to the next item, which is commercial base study. And this is a study that we've talked about a bit at our meetings. We at the executive committee, we decided that the executive committee would try to make a first go at putting together some sort of scope of work so that we can get something down on paper for the board members, for all of you to look at. And then, once we have something on paper, then I think it's easier for everybody to say, oh, I like that, I don't like that, we should do this. And so I think the first step is just to get something down on paper. Are there any, so the plan is to do that and bring something to the board, hopefully at the August meeting. Are there any questions about that item? Okay. So that's it for me. Next item, Lake Quality Committee, Mike.
Lake quality, the lake level today, as we all know, is up nice and high. It's 925.08. 925.08. So it's been above 925 most of the summer, all summer so far. The lake temperature is 77 degrees, very comfortable. Last year it was 80 degrees, even warmer, but right now it's 77 degrees. Maybe with this hot weekend coming, it'll get up to 80. We had the Eurasian water milfoil treatment. It was done July 9th, lake-wide treatment. 2 years ago, we treated 69 acres. Last year, we treated 56 acres. This year, we treated 12 acres. It's all that was out there. And it just, there was milfoil around, but it was down way deep and it was kind of ugly and sickly looking. It was last year's milfoil. Very little new milfoil. We found a couple new areas where we hadn't treated before. So we're always aware of looking for that. But we think that probably the biggest factor was that the lake froze on December 2nd, which is fairly early in modern history. And it snowed right away and covered the ice, so there was no winter growth whatsoever. So I think that added to it quite a bit. So we're very lucky, only had to treat 12 acres. So we're happy with that. That's it for milfoil right now. In a couple of weeks, we'll go back and assess the treatments, see how we did. Then we had some yellowtail iris again in front of the Phil Brown house and the next two houses going north. And it took till last Friday to get the permit. There was a lot of extra bookwork because it was a permit for something totally new, which apparently they haven't had that problem around the Twin City area that much. So it was all brand new, and the DNR had to kind of research it, and I had to provide a lot of graphs and maps and places where it was and all that kind of stuff. So we finally got the permit on Friday. So Lake Management is ready to go ahead and treat it. We approved that last month, and they'll probably get to it this week, if not this week, next week at the latest. So we'll have that treatment taken care of. Hopefully we can just get rid of it and be done with it. And then Scott Costello was doing information on yellowtail iris, which he did an excellent write-up, a little wordy, but I'm sure that condensed. And
yeah, I have to get back to that. There was an article that was put in the White Bear Press, and that's probably adequate for that kind of publicity. But what we need is something in the website, and I just haven't had time.
Okay, and then Phragmites also, in the ideal situation, once we knock it down pretty good, is to have individual homeowners police their own frontage. And
Yeah.
take care of it.
And I think since we are paying to have it controlled, I mean, we can put in directions on how you can kill that stuff, but if it gets into permits, if it gets out in the water where the DNR, cares about it, we probably could just direct people to tell us, and we can put it on a list.
Mm-hmm.
Might be the best
Yeah,
way.
right now the iris is pretty close to shore. It's within the ADUAs, so
Yeah,
we have the right to treat it, but we'd like to then turn it over to the homeowners once we kind of knock it down.
yeah. I don't know. I mean, you can use, like Roundup, or there's a aquatic version of Roundup that you can use depending on where it is, and it gets kind of complicated. And I don't know if I want to.
You can also go in the shovel and get your shovel. Go in the garage and get your shovel and dig it up.
You've got to dig it out pretty thoroughly, and if it's right down in the muck,
yeah,
that's not going to be an easy job.
Yeah, but there aren't big, except in front of the Philip house. They're just isolated plants.
Yeah,
in that area, and I haven't seen them anywhere else on the lake, but I haven't been looking for them. So
the DNR
that's it for me. Has any questions?
Yeah, I was just gonna say the DNR does list that yellow iris on its website, but there's not nearly as much information as there is, about other invasive species.
Hmm.
So it's not like you can just point there and say, well, this is how you control it. I mean, that would be ideal, because it's hard to keep our website up to date with that kind of technical information. You just assume point at somebody else, and other states where apparently it's a big problem have more information, but I really don't want to link to the Pennsylvania Department of Natural Resources. So.
Okay, well, thanks for your efforts on that, you guys. Any questions for Mike?
And Mr. Chair, I'm just curious, as a matter of history, Mike, do you remember the last time? I can't remember the last time we treated 12 acres or less on that lake.
Okay, I can tell you. Hold on. Don't go away. Everybody's there. Reach over to this file.
I mean, it's not going to be a Jeopardy question or anything, but it is kind of curious.
Right. Okay, we treated in 2014, we treated 32 acres. That was the next lowest. Then in 2011, we treated 41 acres. That was the next highest. Then in 2016, we treated 60 acres, and then we do everything else is, we've treated as much as 174 acres in 2010 for $70,000. But that's when we were getting grants. We got to get back and getting grants again. We got to get better at that.
Okay, but if we're only doing, we say 12 acres this year?
Yep.
I mean, there'll be a lot of, or we'll be quite under budget then.
Yeah, the executive committee is working on that.
Okay, because that sounds like an area where we could consider giving underspending back to the cities at the end of the year, I think.
Okay, any other questions for Mike? Okay, thank you, Mike. Next item, Lake Utilization Committee. They did not hold a meeting this month. Next item, Lake Education Committee. Scott?
Nothing to report.
Okay, well, thank you. Next item, Treasurer's Report. Diane?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Treasurer's report for July 2020. Does anyone have any questions, since it was kind of hard to read? If not, I would like to make a motion to approve checks 4646 through 4649.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the checks. Any discussion? Okay, Alan, will you call the vote, please?
Certainly, Mr. Chair.
Aye.
All right. Diane?
Aye.
Scott O'Connor?
Aye.
Mike Peranto?
Aye.
Cameron Sedgwick?
Aye.
And finally, Scott Costello.
Aye.
Checks are approved, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
Thank you. Next item is about our liability coverage waiver. Every year we need to sign a waiver with the League of Minnesota Cities for our liability coverage. Our attorney always tells us to not waive the statutory tort limits. So I would like to make a motion to fill out the form and not waive the statutory tort limits.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Alan, I have a question. Could you just give us the quick summary of this item?
I certainly will. Yeah, just the elevator speech on that. Because the district is organized essentially under the same laws that create municipalities, statutorily municipalities have effectively a liability cap. And so the insurance company, or I shouldn't say the insurance company, the way it's written into state law, of course, cities have the opportunity to waive that cap and to be insured by the League of Minnesota Cities. I'm going to say that it's a requirement that you not waive that statutory tort liability cap, which is what they always tell us to do. It is there to protect cities from sort of runaway juries and that sort of thing. Obviously not a huge issue for the conservation district, but because we're treated as a city, that is usually the request from our insurer that we not waive that, and I would so recommend the motion.
Okay, any other discussion? Okay, Alan, will you call the vote?
Certainly. Mr. Chair.
Aye.
Diane,
Aye.
Scott O'Connor,
Aye.
Mike Baranto,
Aye.
Cameron,
Aye.
and finally Scott Costello.
Aye.
You have not waived your liability cap, once again.
Okay, thank you.
That's all I have.
Diane? Okay, thank you. Any questions for Diane? Okay, we're on to the next item on the agenda, the board council report. Alan?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Been in pretty regular contact, at least each week, with the new DNR officer, who's been quite prolific and quite, I think, effective for patrol on the lake. Yet another DWI or BWI this last month that I charged out. And so those things will be going to court here once court allows us to go back into court. So we're all kind of waiting for those doors to open. But I will say that his presence is becoming very well known, and he's been very effective. That's in addition to obviously Eric Brott and some of the other Ramsey County deputies who regularly patrol. I did get the report from July 3rd and 4th, and although it was busy, blessedly there was not as much criminal activity as you might think on a holiday weekend where it was as nice as it was. So people were relatively tame. That's according to law enforcement anyway. And so if you have any comments that I can take back to those folks, I will, but I would stand for any questions that you have otherwise.
Any questions for Alan? Okay, thank you, Alan. On to the next item, item 9 on the agenda, the announcements. Kim?
I don't have anything this week either. I didn't receive any complaints of any kind, so we're in good shape.
Okay, thank you, Kim. So before we adjourn, and as long as we're still under announcements, these meetings, I think that at the moment, what I would say is we're likely to continue doing Zoom meetings. The issue is that I don't know that the room that we typically have our meetings is set up to handle some people being present at the meeting and some people being remote. But I know the city is working on that. So if they figure something like that out, then perhaps we would meet in person again with some people being remote, but that's down the road a bit. So that's one thing. And the second thing is, these are a little bit unusual meetings. But I would certainly be open if anybody has any suggestions for me as the chair of ways to make the meeting better, things that I could do differently. I'm certainly open to that input. So feel free to email me that. And with that, I will make a motion for adjournment.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn. Any discussion? Alan, will you call the vote, please?
I will, sir. Mr. Chair.
Aye.
Diane,
Aye.
Scott O'Connor,
Aye.
Mike Paranto,
Aye.
Cameron Sidjican,
Aye.
and Scott Costello.
Aye. Bye-bye.
Yeah, you guys have an adjourned meeting, and for what it's worth, I'm more than happy to keep hosting these things. That's why I bought the professional version of the program. So for many people, it probably works as well as anything. I've got one city that's gone back into live sessions, but everyone else that I have to participate with is still doing it on Zoom too.
All right. Well, thanks for hosting.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
And
I
we'll see
send
you all
these
again in
things,
some way next month.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
All right, good night all.
Night.
Thank you.